Hey everyone, I'm Megyn Kelly. Welcome to the Megyn Kelly Show and happy Friday. What a week. Oh, what a week. We've got a great show for you today. Later, I'm going to be joined by the ladies of the Red Scare podcast right here in studio. That's going to be fun. But first, I just want to start with where we left off in this morning's episode. Maybe you saw our special episode or listened to it that just hit on Pete Hegseth and the rape allegations against him that are making headlines all over the media. I need to talk to you about this one more time because the way this is being covered is disgusting. It is disgusting and it is grossly unfair. My team and I have been watching the media devour this news of a police report without actually telling you what's in the police report, just grabbing the most salacious headline and proceeding as though it's true. I'm going to start with CBS. Watch this.
According to the report, a woman referred to as Jane Doe met Hegseth during a conference at the Hyatt Regency Hotel. Both were drinking with a group at the hotel bar when Doe said things got fuzzy. A nurse who treated her later said Doe believed something may have been slipped into her drink. She then recalled being in a hotel room when Hegseth took her phone from her hand. When she got up to leave, Hegseth blocked the door with his body. Her next memory was when she was on a bed or a couch and Hegseth was over her. His dog tags were hovering over her face.
I don't know the young lady.
Oklahoma Senator Markwayne Mullin said Hegseth addressed the allegation in their meeting.
I don't think there's any way in the world you're going to say that this was a sexual assault.
What makes you so confident about that?
Have you read the report?
I actually have. I've got it right here.
I read the report too. It's pretty clear that of what took place. It was pretty clear that it was. She definitely wasn't drugged to a room. It was two people flirting with each other.
Well, it also said she couldn't get out of the room.
Well, that's one person's opinion.
Hegseth's attorney told CBS News police found the allegations to be false and claimed it was Hegseth who was intoxicated and the woman who was the aggressor. He also confirmed the Fox News host paid the woman an unknown sum of money after she threatened to sue, fearing it could cost him his job.
That is disgusting. No, don't retext it to me. I'm talking to my team off mic. What's this woman's name? Don't text it because I have something open on my text that I need. What is it? Nicole Killian? Nicole Killian. You're a hack. Do your fucking homework, you absolute loser. It's really not that hard. It's called reading. You claim you did it. Do it. Do it and then report what's actually in the actual police report. What a disgusting cretin. This is disgusting. He's been accused, I believe, falsely of rape. But you don't have to believe as I do, Nicole. It's fine if you see it a different way. However, you must report the facts. Those are the rules of our business. Anybody who doesn't report the exonerating facts for Pete Hegseth in this report is a hack and should be treated accordingly. And it's not just CBS News, all right? We pulled... In fact, before I get to the other examples, let me just recap for you because many of you are living your lives and aren't able to listen to every episode we put out. But we went through this thing in great detail. It's an hour long. Highly recommend you listen. And we released it this morning. And I just wrote down the highlights of it for my team so that they could go check all the news reporting to see whether this stuff was in there. Okay? You know the allegations. Jane Doe, that's what she's going by, claims that she and Pete hooked up. She claims it was a rape. He claims it was a hookup at an event for some California Republican women's group in October of 2017. She claims that she may have been slipped a drug, that the details are fuzzy, but that days later she started to recall that she was in a sexual interlude with him and that it was non-consensual. And while the details were blurry, she remembered saying no a lot. Well, okay, that's fine. That's what's all over the news, all over. And then he blocked the door. She tried to get out, but he blocked the door, which you heard that reporter, Nicole, throw back at that lawmaker like it was the alpha and omega of the story. Nicole, pay attention, sweetheart. I'm here for you. In fact, if you look at this police report, here are some of the details not reported by the hacks at CBS. Just a couple. Jane Doe, we don't get to know her name. We only get to know Pete. We get to see Pete Hegseth, rape defendant, but we don't get to know anything about Jane Doe. What's Jane Doe's history? Has Jane Doe accused others? Is Jane Doe known as a credible and truthful person? Does Jane Doe have a history of dishonesty or potentially even criminality? We don't get to know any of that. because we protect, quote, sexual assault victims, even if we don't know if they're a sexual assault victim, even if no one's ruled that they're a sexual assault victim. Even those of us at Fox News who came forward against Roger Ailes understood that our identities, like yours truly, would eventually be made known to him so that he could defend himself, and ultimately were leaked to the news anyway. But Jane Doe gets to remain anonymous while making an allegation like this. That's where we are. Here are some of the things in the police report that Nicole claims she read. Jane Doe was seen by an eyewitness flirting with Pete Hegseth at Knuckles Bar, which is attached to the Hyatt Regency at which they were both staying and in which he gave the speech, including touching his leg or arm prior to the alleged sexual assault. They were at Knuckles Bar around midnight. The alleged sexual assault happened between 2 a.m. and 4 a.m. She was seen in the bar flirting with him, including touching him. 2 witnesses at the bar, women who we believe were at the conference with her. She was one of the workers for this conference. 2 witnesses at the bar say Jane Doe did not appear out of control, intoxicated, or drugged. She did not look that way to anybody. She appeared completely in charge of her faculties. She tells the police she only had 1 glass of champagne that evening. 1 glass, that she had been drinking more than normal earlier that day, she said, but that night she only had 1 glass of champagne, according to her, and everyone around her says she appeared in control of her faculties and not drugged, not intoxicated. One woman said she might have been buzzed, but she wasn't drunk. Cops say videotapes that they reviewed show her at 1:15 a.m. and a second one at 1:30 a.m. with Pete. 1:15 a.m., she and Pete are walking out of the Knuckles Bar, presumably back to his hotel room. She claims as his handler, she was just getting him from A to B. And at 1:30, they were stopped because they had an argument poolside about, quote, his treatment of women. Totally inappropriate boundary crossing by this woman already. You're his handler. You don't know each other. You don't have any right to talk to him about how he treats women. Stay in your lane. You've behaved unprofessionally. You've already crossed a line. By the way, according to the eyewitnesses, Pete was drunk. He'd been drinking beer, not hard alcohol, but was drunk by virtually everybody's assessment other than Pete's. They are seen at 1:15 leaving Knuckles and walking. They're arm in arm. They're arm in arm, and she is smiling. She does not appear drunk on the videotape. She appears in control of her faculties and is not stumbling. Read the police report, Nicole. At 1:30 a.m., they get stopped by a hotel front desk guy who was filling in for security because 2 hotel occupants called and complained about a loud argument poolside. The guy went there to get them under control. Pete was yelling. I don't know if she was yelling, but they were having some sort of an argument. And she defended him by saying, oh, sorry, we're Republicans, and I'll get him to his room. She put her hand behind his back and shepherded him away from the pool. The front desk guy said she did not appear drunk. She was not stumbling and did not appear intoxicated. He, however, did, Pete. Okay, so now we've got 1, 2, 3 eyewitnesses who were there who say she wasn't drunk. Her whole story is that someone appears to have slipped her a Mickey and she was too drugged to remember exactly what happened during this allegedly traumatic rape. When was she drugged? We are now within 30 minutes of the alleged rape. She is seen by 3 eyewitnesses and on 2 videotapes reviewed by police looking absolutely fine. Within 30 minutes or so, she will be allegedly raped. When did she get intoxicated? When did someone slip her the drug? The hotel front desk clerk, we mentioned him. Then she goes to his hotel room between 1:30 and 2 in the morning. This was within moments after the videotape and the eyewitness hotel front desk clerk said she did not look drunk. She goes into his room, and she is texting with her husband, it appears, from the room. The husband is down the hall with his children, their children, in their own hotel room, looking for his wife. He texts her around 2 a.m. saying, I don't remember the last time you were out at 2 a.m. Like, where are you? And no response. And then after 2 a.m., he goes down to Knuckles Bar looking for his wife. No one's there. Then at 2 additional times, I think it was 2:56 a.m. and 3:40 a.m., he calls his wife's phone, no answer. She's still in there with Pete. According to the police report, she comes back home to her hotel room with her husband and her 2 children sleeping. The kids sleeping. I don't know if the husband was. He had just called her at 3:40. And according to the husband, she does not appear drunk. The husband says She's not stumbling. She's not slurring. And she's apologetic. And what does she tell the husband? That she, quote, must have fallen asleep. Pete Hegseth said they went back to the room. It was consensual. They had sex. She felt guilty. Her husband was down the hall. And she told him that she would tell the husband that she fell asleep. The husband told the cops individually, he's not talking to Pete. She told me when she got home at 4 a.m. when she looked fine, she must have fallen asleep. Pete, simultaneously talking to the cops, not talking to the husband, says she felt guilty and she told me she was going to tell the husband that she fell asleep. She was in that room for, at best, an hour and 50 minutes, an hour and 55 minutes, because she was home by 4 a.m. At 1:30 a.m., she was seen looking totally fine and not intoxicated. When did he give her a Mickey? When did he slip her the alleged Rohypnol that made her so drunk and drugged out that she couldn't remember anything about this alleged rape? She shows up. The husband says she looks fine and she's sorry. She doesn't wake up the next morning and run to the cops. In fact, it's not another 30 hours or so before she then has sex with her husband. And it all comes rushing back to her that she was allegedly raped by Pete Hegseth. I'm sorry, but this is a crock of shit. CBS News, the vaunted. This is bullshit. That's my opinion. I don't believe one word of this. I did the podcast yesterday, which we released this morning, and the more I looked at it and the more I slept on it, the angrier I got. And then I saw news coverage like this, CNN's lead. A California woman told police that Trump cabinet pick Pete Hegseth physically blocked her from leaving a hotel room, took her phone, and then sexually assaulted her, even though she, quote, remembered saying no a lot. NBC lead line. A woman told police that Pete Hegseth, President-elect Donald Trump's choice for defense secretary, took her phone and blocked her from leaving his hotel room before sexually assaulting her in 2017 after a convention in California, according to official records of a police investigation released Wednesday. This is a lot. You go through the reporting. Let's see. Looking at just okay. Who reported that she was back at her hotel room by 4 a.m. and her husband said she was not slurring or stumbling and that she was apologetic? New York Times, no. Washington Post, no. CNN, no. NBC, no. No one thought that was relevant. Did anybody sit down to do the fucking timeline? All you get in these reports is that the whole night was fuzzy. She was drunk for several hours or fuzzy, drugged for several hours. You don't think it's relevant that if you look at the timeline as laid out by the cops, at most we have a 2-hour window in which they are alone. She's seen 1/2 an hour before it looking totally fine, but thanks to 2 videos and 3 independent eyewitnesses. And so when did she get drugged, folks? She was in there for 2 hours and on the back end, her husband said she didn't look drunk. And you don't report any of that? Nothing, none of that is relevant to you? Here's another thing. The police asked her to participate in a pretext call where she calls Pete Hegseth back and says, hey, remember that time you raped me? Why'd you do that, Pete? Why did you block the door and not let me out and do all the terrible things I told the cops you did? And guess what she said? No. No, I refuse. That too is suspicious. You could explain it by saying a rape victim doesn't want to confront her rapists. I get that. That's one possible interpretation. Another is she knew he'd say, what the F are you doing, Jane Doe? You know this was consensual. And then start offering a bunch of details that made that seem very clear and obvious and true, like a truth teller sounds. So she declined to do this. Did anybody report that? I didn't know about it until I read the police report. Let's see. New York Times, did you report it? No. Washington Post? No. CNN? No. NBC? No. And this is unbelievable. They don't want you to know. Did anybody point out that she went to Pete's hotel room between 1:30 and 2 within moments after the videotape and all the eyewitnesses say she did not look drunk? Did the news offer you that timeline so you could draw your own conclusion? New York Times, no. Washington Post, no. CNN, no. NBC mentioned that at 1:30 and that she went back to her hotel room at 4, but didn't contextualize how improbable the date rape drug accusation was given the timeline. We can do this all day. We can stay. You get it. I'm angry. This is wrong. Now he must be confirmed. You heard me yesterday. I don't like the cheating on all the wives stuff. You may feel differently. I don't think it should sink his nomination. I don't like it. But this is not okay, what's being done to him. Joining me now, Victor Davis Hanson, a senior fellow at the Hoover Institution and author of The Case for Trump. Don't miss a moment. Subscribe to this show on YouTube and follow me on Insta, Facebook, and X. Let me ask you a question. Do you think our country's going in the right direction? Are you one of the 20% who thinks so? Or does it feel more like things are falling apart? If you are feeling alarmed, you're not alone. In fact, Americans from all walks of life have taken action to prepare for whatever's coming next. And that could start with having an emergency food supply. Storing food in your home can be valuable, really valuable, not to mention brings you peace of mind in this crazy time in America, which explains why so many people are preparing. Right now, you can get ready too with a 3-month emergency food kit from My Patriot Supply. It comes with delicious foods like creamy stroganoff, honey wheat bread, and mushroom rice pilaf. The entire kit offers over 2,000 calories every day. This food kit lasts up to 25 years. Who knows what our country will look like then? But you can know you'll be ready for what comes. Go to preparewithmegan.com now to order your 3-month emergency food kit from My Patriot Supply. That's preparewithmegan.com. VDH, welcome back. This is an outrage. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I read the report as well, and there were some in there. I mean, I don't think a person who is sexually assaulting a victim has a discussion whether they can continue with the act of coitus if they don't have a condom. So it was a mutual discussion about condom protection, and then they both mutually decide it was okay to go ahead. I don't think any rapist discusses that with the victim. And the second thing that bothered me, this is kind of graphic, Megyn, but he said that at one point she was in the superior position. So, right. I mean, if she, that doesn't, those two items themselves don't really fit the typical pattern of a male viciously forcing a woman down, penetrating her, injuring her. You don't, rapists that do that don't say, by the way, what should we do about a condom? What do you think? Should we? I don't have one. Do you? And she says no. And she says, is it mine? You go ahead. And he said, no, it's okay. We'll go ahead with it. And then she assumes a position on top of him.
Well, let me just say this though, Victor. Let me say this. That is all Pete's story. So, and I understand this. He said, she said.
That was from. So, but yeah, that was from his point of view.
I am trying to just look at the independent, verifiable facts. The verifiable facts. I'm not taking her story, and I'm not taking his story. I'm taking the story of the police, the videotapes, and the independent witnesses, and they do not, and her husband, and they do not support this woman's story. I mean, if you take anything that Pete says is real, he's exonerated. If you take a lot of what she says, he's still exonerated. She's at best, she's like, it's fuzzy. And I remember he was on top of me and he blocked the door when I tried to leave one time. But all of these independent facts, Victor, in order to Pete's benefit, not hers, and the media either doesn't report on them or confronts lawmakers who are about to vote yes on Pete in the hallway as though they're about to approve Ted Bundy.
Yeah, but didn't she? I know that, but didn't she wait almost 72 hours before reporting it?
Yes.
3 days.
She didn't go to the nurse for her sexual assault and rape exam until Thursday. The alleged rape happened overnight, Saturday to Sunday.
And I don't think she contacted law enforcement till Monday, did she?
Nothing happened until Thursday. She went to the sexual assault nurse, who then was a mandatory reporter. She brought in the cops, and then they spoke to her. So the earliest any official was told was the Thursday after the early mornings of Sunday, Saturday into Sunday.
So if you look at the police report, the alleged victim then goes back to her hotel room early in the morning, engages in sexual intercourse. And I think the name is blocked out, but I assume it was her husband. She had sex with her husband on Monday morning when they went back to their marital home together. Yes. And then did she contact law enforcement at that point? No. And in fact, it wasn't until Wednesday that she told the husband she had supposedly been raped when she was in the hotel. And then within a day, she went for a sexual assault and rape exam.
and that nurse called the cops.
And am I mistaken that she said that during the sexual act with her husband or whoever, that I think the name was blocked out, I assumed again it was her husband, then
That's
that
right.
brought memories back for the first time, that she thought she
Yes.
remembered it, and then she
You got it.
transformed she had transformed the act into one of violence that she hadn't really appreciated for 3 or 4 days.
But all the details were sketchy because her memory was so foggy.
Yeah. I just don't think the average person, I think and then law enforcement didn't choose to turn it over to the district attorney, and that was why. Because
Well, and here's one other fact.
Let
me just say one other fact. She also tells the police that right at the beginning of the night, when she is first at the bar, Knuckles, which they were at midnight, that this is where things got fuzzy. That's according to her. She started to get fuzzy as of midnight at the bar. But 2 eyewitnesses at the bar say she was fine. The front desk clerk who confronted her an hour and a half later says she was fine. And the 2 videotapes show her smiling, holding Pete's arm, and absolutely fine. After she says she started getting fuzzy, putting the lie to the claim.
Yeah, but there's no evidence. I mean, when she says she thinks it's possible, sort of, kind of, maybe, that somebody put something in her drink, who is she suggesting that did that? I mean, if Pete is already drunk, I'm not sure he would be able to do that. And she has no evidence that she saw who was close to her. Is she saying the bartender did? Why would the bartender do it? Or why?
Well, here's
there was
the other
no
thing. Here's the other thing. Pete, according to this other woman and Pete was, he had an eye out for a woman that night, and it was another woman. It was a different woman who Pete was putting his hand on this woman's knee while Jane Doe was putting her hand on Pete and trying to flirt with Pete. Pete later told cops he didn't even notice this woman, Jane Doe. She wasn't even a thought in his mind. He had his eye on another woman who wasn't into him. And since Jane Doe was his handler, this other woman called Jane Doe and asked her to be, pardon the term, a crotch blocker. That's in the police report, because she didn't want to be with Pete. So this woman, according to Pete, then goes back to his hotel room with him, stays, this is Pete's testimonial, stays in the room an oddly weird time, like, okay, it's kind of over, goodbye. And she's lingering, and the next thing you know, one thing leads to another. But it sounds like a woman who didn't get any attention from him, who had been pointing out via text to her husband earlier in the night that all the women were going crazy for Pete, and who lingered, who wasn't noticed by the hot guy from Fox, and suddenly found herself alone in his hotel room, lingered, and before you know it, now she's allegedly fuzzy, and the next morning, or two days later, okay, it's coming back to me that I was raped by him.
And then she took, as I understand it, correct me if I'm wrong, then she discussed with Pete or took a payment from Pete to not disclose the incident because he thought it might harm.
Yep,
3 years later, and then
they talk about, I can't remember. I feel like it's possible he heard she was getting ready to go public. I can't remember what the catalyst was. I'll look it up. But in any event, his lawyer and she or her lawyer started to negotiate something to make her be quiet about this, because he realized that his lawyer says he would be fired in an instant at Fox News if he were accused of rape. So he paid her something to make her go away.
And then how did it air? Somebody directed people to the police report? Was that her? Has she commented? Did she violate her non-disclosure agreement?
Yes. She had a friend write a report and go to Mar-a-Lago, or send the report to Mar-a-Lago to the Trump transition team, and simultaneously, apparently, release it to the media.
Well, I mean, as I understand at the time, I read the police report, but it seemed to me that he was in a process of separating from his wife. So he was nominally single, and she's in the same area with her husband and her 2 kids. And any sane woman knows that if you're married and your husband's in the hotel room, you don't walk with a celebrity who's intoxicated to his room. And then if something happens, you immediately, if it's a violent assault, you immediately tell somebody, your husband. Obviously you would go back to your husband and say, my God, I've been raped, or my friend, you'd call it, but you don't keep mum for almost 3 or 4 days. And then when this process works out, then you don't take money from somebody with the threats that you're going to disclose something that's he said, she said that would be embarrassing to them. And then you sit on that for years until he becomes, and you get the impression that she would have never come forward because it would have had very little currency unless he's in the limelight now as a nominee for the defense post. So then she wants to come back again. It's very similar to the Kavanaugh debacle, very similar. And I don't think it's going to work, though. I really do. There's so many. We're beyond Me Too now. I think that people are more rational, and I think I just don't think the facts will warrant. And once they start to discuss it, it won't warrant a charge that he forcibly put himself on some woman. It just doesn't make sense.
This is an outrageous dereliction of journalistic duty by these news outlets to report it the way that they are.
Yes.
This thing smells to high heaven. The difference between Christine Blasey Ford and this woman, in my opinion, is I think Christine Blasey Ford just made it up to get Kavanaugh because she was a political operative.
I do too.
Maybe she had a negative experience with him all those years ago that didn't involve rape, but that maybe he rejected her. I don't know why she had it in for Kavanaugh, but I know she didn't like his politics. But this woman appears to have just cheated on her husband and then really regretted it and gone into a panic. Under Pete's version of the story, she came back willingly. She threw herself at him. They had consensual sex. And then she said, oh my God, what am I going to tell my husband? And he said, I promise I won't tell. And she said, I'm going to tell him I fell asleep. And at that point, she must have been looking at her phone. We've seen the phone receipts that he had called her. First, he said at 2. Geez, I don't remember the last time we were out till 2 a.m. Then he called her at, again, I'm trying to remember the exact times, but I think it was 2:40 and 2:56 and 3:40. And then, and he also said, I'm going down to Knuckles Bar to look for, like he also went down to Knuckles Bar to look for her. So she must have been in an oh shit moment when she saw all of that on her phone. So she goes back home. She gets in and she's apologetic. The husband is awake because he had just tried to call her at 3:40. And she says she fell asleep. That's it. It doesn't turn into a rape in her head, she says, until Monday morning when she has sex with the husband. And she doesn't give the husband that story until Wednesday. And I guarantee you, these two were having some very heated arguments over the course of those 3.5 days. Where were you? Whose room were you asleep in? Put that person on the phone. Who can I talk to? What, there's just no way a husband doesn't know. I just feel like this husband, he knew something was up, and there's no way that by Wednesday, he must have had her, and she resorted to, I was raped. That's all my opinion. But at a minimum, the independent facts should be reported by the news, and they should stop smearing him as though this is an actual rape to which he's admitted, which is what you would think if you read the reports. Okay, in related news. Yeah, go ahead.
I would just say in the practical matter, you're in a very left-wing state, and I know Monterey, it's a very left-wing community, and you have likely left-wing district attorneys, and you have a Fox celebrity and Fox people are not that popular in California compared to, say, other states. And then this liberal environment and its law enforcement apparatus look at this and they examine it very carefully and they file no charges at all. They see there's no sexual assault at all. And they that's the end of it. And then she resurfaces. So it's going to be very hard for her, I think, to be used by the left to sabotage his nomination. And of course, we're not talking about what is really, and that's, I guess, the point of what she's doing and who's influencing her. But the real point is that Pete Hegseth is talking about some things that are beyond comprehension that we've never discussed before. He wants to go into the DOD and stop the entire DEI apparatus. He wants to go in there and stop the revolving door generals who go into a defense contractor after retirement, come back to the DOD with high-paying jobs that influences their strategy and bad strategy of procurement. He wants to go in there, and no one else has even thought of that, going in and looking having an autopsy of the worst military catastrophe in 100 years in Afghanistan. Who did it? Who planned it? Who was culpable? Who was not? Whose 13 people died? Could this have been prevented? We've never really had an in-depth discussion. So there's all these very important issues, and I don't think the left wants any of them to be discussed. And so I think this is sort of a sideshow that's designed to get somebody else in there, a nominee of the usual type that would not do any of the things that Pete, if you read his book, The War on Warriors, would probably do.
The other thing is, if Pete Hegseth is running around giving women the date rape drug, you don't think we'd have another woman coming forward to say, that's not a one-time adventure. But the bottom line is the date rape drug does not kick in 30 seconds and wear off in 30 minutes. This woman was fine by all accounts when she went into that room at 2 and was fine by her husband's account when she came out at 4. That's not how the date rape drug works. And she's not even alleging that she was given a drink inside of his hotel room. It was the drink she had back at Knuckles Bar at midnight. So at 1:15 a.m. she's fine. At 1:30 a.m. she's fine. When was the date rape drug allegedly given? It's just this is obvious nonsense. That's why they didn't charge Pete Hegseth. The cops knew. And especially when she said, I won't participate in the setup phone call of the guy, they knew. My team has sent me the following just to answer that question. Sometime after the incident, the woman and her husband hired a lawyer to, quote, ensure Hegseth did not get off without punishment, according to the memo sent to the Trump transition team. Hegseth's lawyer proposed they sign a non-disclosure agreement, the details of which have not been made public, the memo said. The agreement was signed about 2.5 years after the alleged assault. This is what any man would do. I mean, any public figure, Pete's, I'm sure, got some dough in the bank now from all the years at Fox. Any man would say, would you please just pay her and make her go away? I definitely don't want her coming out and making those allegations. By the way, it's best not to go to bed with a complete stranger whose character you have no clue about, men and women out there. And then you don't have to worry about people doing this to you. I will say one thing. The latest reporting is that, this was in the Wall Street Journal, that Team Trump is not pleased that Pete did not disclose this when they were doing the vetting, and is doubly displeased that he didn't reveal there was a police report detailed, which Pete knew about from at least 2021, they said. So even though Pete should not be condemned in this way by the media, and I don't believe he committed this act, it doesn't mean he's going to sail through. And it doesn't mean Team Trump is going to stand by him to the bitter end. I don't know what's going to happen there. I just want people to be honest about what the facts show here.
Yeah. And they're going to go after a certain typology of nominee, and we know who those people are. It's RFK, Pete Hegseth, Tulsi Gabbard, and all the non-conventional people that we don't really, their resumes don't match what the usual occupants of those positions have. And that's the point. And that's what Donald Trump is trying to tell people. He wants people who are non-traditional. They don't have the usual letters after their name or the titles before their name, or they don't revolve to universities or corporations in the Washington, New York nexus between jobs and the government. But they have to be very careful how they vet those people, because they're gonna get the most intense scrutiny. And I think we're going to hear the same type of stories that are going to start to circulate. I don't mean sexual necessarily, but I think when RFK or Tulsi Gabbard go up, they're going to have the same hit machines that will go after them. John Bolton has already gone after her, said she was a veritable Russian asset. And we've had RFK. I mean, I never had heard until he was a candidate the story of hitting a bear or some type of parasite in his brain, or one of his former wives hanged herself. All of that's going to come out, and it's going to come out especially for those candidates, because that's the ones the left, I think, feels that they have the most traction against and they're most afraid of. If he nominates Kash Patel for the FBI, and I know him very well, and he's a very bright guy. He was really, when he worked for Devin Nunes, he was the point man that broke the whole story that Christopher Steele was not just a former spy who had been giving money by Hillary Clinton to compile. He was actually getting money from the FBI, why they were denying it. So that was a really, and they don't like him, and he's very tough, and he's outspoken, and he's probably said things in the past that is going to come out. But those are the types of things that we should be in store for, because it's going to happen.
We're going to have to steel ourselves for the onslaught, because they'll bring up any untoward personal behavior to try to kill these nominees. And we're going to have to just increase our tolerance for some of those stories, because it's like that. The Trump, he's not going to pick the person with the perfect resume and the perfect behavior and who is beloved by the establishment. That's just not who Trump's going to pick. He wants to get some street fighters, and necessarily they're going to have some dirt under their fingernails. That is not to suggest if Pete actually raped somebody, we should put him as the DOD chief. It's just to say that some of these nominees are going to have, less than perfect personal histories, and we're going to have to factor that in. I want to tell you about this. Go ahead, Victor.
Well, it's not that the nominees that we have, these people are antithetical to them, but it's not that the nominees that are in office and were confirmed don't have baggage. It's just a different kind of baggage. And so when they look at Pete Hegseth, there'll be a Republican person that said, have you ever been in a situation where you just walked off the job for a week and nobody knew where you were, like Lloyd Austin, when you were in charge of the entire military? Have you ever been in charge of an operation where you just left town and left all of your equipment in the hands of terrorists, $50 billion? Have you ever had that happen to you? Have you ever set up programs where the merit of placing the shells on the target was not important as the proper gender and race in your unit? Have you ever done that? And I think the same thing with Pam Bondi with the DOJ. They're going to say, have you ever got a federal subpoena from Congress the way that Eric Holder did on Fast and Furious, and just, tear it up without consequences?
And Merrick
Garland.
Have
you ever cooked up an idea like Fast and Furious to sell guns to people in the cartels as if you could trace it? Have you ever, on one single day, coordinated, as Merrick Garland has done? You hired Jack Smith on one day, the third person in your DOJ went to work for Alvin Bragg the same day, and the same day the White House counsel was meeting with Nathan Wade in the White House, all coordinating lawfare. Have you ever done that? Have you ever sent the SWAT teams out to people's homes, like, Roger Stone or the President of the United States? They went through Melania's underwear. Have you ever had a law enforcement group go into somebody at 2 a.m, like James O'Keefe in his underwear, looking for acting as a retrieval service for the Biden? The Bidens lose guns, they lose laptops, they lose diaries, and the FBI then goes out and roughs people up to find them. So there's all sorts of stuff that they do, but it's a different type of activity. It's much more dangerous to the Republic. And same thing with Kash Patel. I think they're going to say, have you ever lied under oath as an FBI person? Well, Andrew McCabe lied under oath 4 times to a federal investigator. James Comey pled 245 times. He could not remember all the details of the Steele dossier. Robert Mueller said, I don't remember what the State Steele dossier is. I have no idea what Fusion GPS. Those were the 2 catalysts that prompted his appointment as special prosecutor. So they have a very different creed. If you're from a certain milieu or zip code or university or prior resume, then you're getting exempt from doing things, lying under oath like James Clapper did or John Brennan repeatedly, and there's no consequences. And then they come around and say, we're not going to have this person in office because he doesn't have the right experience. But that's what Trump is trying to tell the nation. These people are too incestuous, and they have a certain type of resume and a certain type of outlook that gives them an arrogance and a hubris, and they abuse their authority, and we're not going to do it anymore. And I think that's why we're going to see some fireworks.
That is so beautifully said. Steve Krakauer, we need to clip that response and put it everywhere, because that's exactly right. Why are we... I asked the audience yesterday, because, look, Pete's behavior with respect to his many wives is not ideal, Victor. But I don't really care. I'm not marrying Pete Hegseth. I already have a delightful husband who I really adore. It's not my problem. Yeah. It's between him and the women who marry him. What is my problem is a woke military that doesn't get enough recruits, that is in which the men feel totally dejected because they're being lectured on white rage and white fragility and by these, commanders that they're somehow wrong, notwithstanding the fact that all these guys are the ones who are getting killed at an exponential rate, as you've been pointing out. That is my problem. That is something I need to worry about. So if Pete Hegseth is going to go in there and shake that up and stop the wokeness and actually listen to the working class branch of the military as opposed to the brass who runs things and just wants another star. Great. Good. I'd love to see that. It just the past 24 hours have been so eye-opening as you just started dig into the meal.
I don't like this any more than you do, but in World War II, George Patton, while he was leading the Third Army to victory and broke apart the German resistance in Europe, was having an affair with his own stepniece in theater.
Oh, boy.
Stepniece, not his niece, but his stepniece. At the same time, Dwight Eisenhower was infatuated with his British chauffeur, young woman, Kay Summersby. And people were very shocked, and they kept warning Ike, this does not look good. She later claimed they had an affair. I don't know what's true. But if you had taken Eisenhower out of the theater and Patton out of the theater, we would have lost the European war at that point. And that's regrettable they did that. But in the great scale of things, George Patton was an authentic military genius, the likes of which we've never seen before. And Eisenhower had a genius for organization and grand strategy. And people like that were essential to the war effort. And somebody like George Marshall, who was a straight arrow, puritanical, brilliant, honest guy, knew that. And that's why he remonstrated with both, but he kept them both in command, and we won the war. And just the way it is.
You know what else? We talked about this yesterday in passing, but JFK was having an affair, as you know, with everybody, but with a 16-year-old White House intern named Mimi Alford. Alford. Actual sex with this woman.
Who was a virgin. Remember, she was a virgin when she met him.
Right. She was working for him in the White House, not to mention what Bill Clinton did.
In the presidential bed. In the
These same Democrats, they revere these two, JFK and Bill Clinton. But we're supposed to get upset about what Pete may or may not have done with respect to his wives and his marriages. Well, we're not. We're not.
I had a close friend who was really arguing me about Trump and Stormy Daniels, but it happened way before he was in office. So just as a joke, I said, what bothers me about Trump is his daughter was arranging an affair while he was president. And the guy said, yes, good, Victor. And then I said, then he pulled down his pants and showed the cabinet his sexual. Oh my God, Victor, I didn't know that. I'm so glad. And then I said he had an affair with a young intern right off the White House, and he bedded a virgin. And then the guy said, well, that case, I'm glad I said, I just described JFK, Bill Clinton, FDR, and Lyndon Johnson. And no one in those days disclosed any of that. The reporters all knew that FDR was having an affair with Lucy Mercer. They all knew that LBJ was doing things that we would call perverted. We all knew that JFK was completely uninhibited and out of control when it came to young women. Everybody knew the same was true of Bill Clinton. And these were occurring while they were in the office, not Stormy Daniels years ago. Nobody has made an allegation that Donald Trump did anything untoward with women while he was in office. Mm-hmm. And yet nobody says anything about that. They say FDR was a great president. He was. JFK was a model Democrat. Well, I wish we had him now. And but
which one dropped trow in front of the cabinet?
That's LBJ. I could go on a little bit more graphic. He grabbed his organ and he said, "Does Ho Chi Minh have anything like this?" According to Robert Carroll's biography. What? But it's also proven that he would open the door while he was on the toilet and force aides that he didn't like to take memos when they had to watch him defecate. So he was a pretty crude person, and yet he's an icon still among the left. And so I guess what I'm trying to say is not to excuse that type of behavior, but there was a time in America, in a much more puritanical time than ours, when people said, it's too bad they don't have character in these particular areas, but we haven't made the argument that because your personal life is suspect, then you're not, it would be nice, you're not going to.
The other thing is, where was CBS's Nicole, what's her name, whatever, on the Doug Emhoff allegations? I don't remember her running through the halls of the White House to try to get comment from Kamala Harris on her being married to an alleged woman abuser. There was no interest whatsoever in actually tracking down this woman.
There was a lot more evidence for Tara Reid. She actually mentioned her sexual assault by Joe Biden to her mother, who brought it up on a Larry King show contemporaneously than there ever was.
I interviewed her.
Yes, with Susan Blasey Ford.
I didn't have a show. I had no tether whatsoever to any news organization. I didn't launch this show. I came out of COVID. I flew out to California to sit down with Tara Reid because no one was talking to her. So I was like, you know what? I'll just put it on my fledgling YouTube channel. I'm giving this woman a forum. And it wasn't because it was a Democrat accuser. I interviewed Trump accusers too. It's not that hard. You can let them have their say and then let the analysts poke holes or not in the stories. But ignoring the stories is what the left does when the accused is one of their beloved Democrats.
Absolutely. And we all know that Joe Biden serially violated the private space of women. He blew in their ears. He held them too long. He remarked in a way that was kind of creepy to young preteen girls in the audience. He did such that when he ran, as you remember, in 2019-20, he had to apologize for his behavior. And he said, they called him on it finally. A lot of women came forward and said, you squeezed me, you tried to kiss me, you tried to blow in my ear. And he said, I came from a different generation. That's basically what he said. When it was considered okay, it's not okay, I apologize. But it's just a different standard.
Yeah, absolutely right. Now, here's what I was trying to get to. All of this, at least the media piece of it, is having an effect because I put it all under the heading of how dishonest they are, untrustworthy, and how their time in the sun is done. Morning Joe knows it. They are hemorrhaging viewers at an alarming rate. And now we actually can put some meat on those bones. We still have some sources in the TV industry and people who know the ratings that the rest of us don't necessarily see in great detail. And sources are telling us that Morning Joe over on MS, Chris Hayes and Joy Reid are all seeing record demo lows. The demo's 25 to 54-year-olds, which determines advertising rates. Record demo lows this week for the history of their respective shows. Let me give you some more. Morning Joe on Monday got 770 in the overall and 86,000 in the key demo. They had been averaging over 800,000, let's say back in June, like 866,000 in June, with 114,000 in the demo. So they fell by a lot. Then comes Tuesday. Tuesday's broadcast of Morning Joe was the show's third lowest broadcast of 2024, with total viewership down 38% from their average and the key demo down 37% from the show's average. So they fell almost 40% overall from Monday to Tuesday. Monday's the day they made their announcement. And on Monday, instead of building during the show as they normally do, they lost. They went from 839 total thousand and 113,000 in the demo to 694,000 in the second hour and sunk 38% in the demo. We're told that Monday's show, I believe, was it Monday's show? Or no, Wednesday's show was the lowest in Morning Joe's history. The lowest in their history. The Wednesday demo, that's the 25 to 54, they got 51,000. 1,001 fewer, and it would have been a slashy which is the ultimate embarrassment. They don't even write 49,000. They write slashy, which is you've fallen off the board. Victor, can you stay just a couple more minutes on the opposite side of this break? Okay, thank you. I got to take a quick break. We got to finish that discussion and one more, and then my next guests. Don't go away. Okay, coming up, the ladies of Red Scare join us after Victor as well. This holiday season, millions of families across America will rely on credit card rewards to visit their loved ones. But according to our sponsor, the Electronic Payments Coalition, D.C. politicians are trying to pass a bill that would lead to the end of credit card rewards. They say the Durbin-Marshall credit card bill would mandate credit cards run on alternative networks, not the trusted and stable ones you probably use today. And there's no guarantee that the convenience, zero liability fraud protection, and rewards programs will remain. The Electronics Payments Coalition says corporate megastores will make more money while you sacrifice your payment convenience, rewards, and peace of mind. Find out more at guardyourcard.com and consider telling Congress to guard your card and to oppose the Durbin-Marshall credit card bill. Learn more at guardyourcard.com. Just to correct, not the lowest in Morning Joe's history. In fact, they've gone lower, but this is one of the lowest, almost getting slashies in the key demo on Wednesday. There is a reason its audience is abandoning MSNBC, Victor.
Yeah, there is. They're in kind of a doom loop, Megyn, because their diehard audience, it got smaller and smaller and smaller, so they got down to 700,000 viewers, is very intolerant of any deviation from the party line. But to expand their audience, they've got to cool off the personal attacks on right-wing people, all of the hysteria. Same thing with Joy Reid, stop the overtly racist stuff. But when they do that, they start to lose their small audience, and the small audience gets smaller. So I guess the only way out of it is to take a risk and go mainstream and try to appeal to people of all political points of view. And in that process, they're going to lose their base hard left audience, and they may not expand into the right wing who feel they're insincere. So I don't know how they get out of it, is what I'm trying to say.
No, I don't think they can, which is actually really fun to watch. It's not just those morning and primetime shows that are suffering. The MSNBC has lost its mind. I mean, just up and down the line, they've lost their minds. You need look no further than the headline this morning on MSNBC.com, where they responded to Laken Riley, the 22-year-old nursing student in Georgia who was murdered by a Venezuelan illegal. They responded to his being convicted and sentenced to life in prison without parole with this headline: Laken Riley's killer never stood a chance. What? It was up for a long time. He never stood a chance. It was up for a long time. Finally, just as we come to air, they changed it to the guilt of Laken Riley's killer was never in doubt. Apparently, their headline was too much even for their left-wing audience, Victor.
You know, the common denominator with all these stories is that this bi-coastal leader, whoever they think they are, they're completely immune from the consequences of their own ideology and policy. So they never see the Lincoln Rileys of the world, their parents. They don't know they all count on the idea that they're going to experiment on us like we're lab rats with all this transgender stuff, all this open border stuff, all this critical legal theory, all this critical racial theory. And then they're going to retreat into these zip codes and enclaves and areas where they're never going. Martha's Vineyard. The Obamas are going to venture out from Martha's Vineyard or the Hollywood Mansion or the Colorama Mansion, then lecture all of us, and then they're going to retreat right back there with all the things they've done. The fallout from it's never going to hit them until they really have to experience things that they promoted, and they're never going to change. And I think that was another thing about the election was that one iconic moment when Barack Obama was lecturing African-American young men who have to deal with high prices and crime and illegal immigration. He was telling them they were illiberal and they had to shape up, and they didn't know what was good for them. It was almost like a Marxist saying, you're all suffering from false consciousness. And I, the professor, am going to tell you what you really should be thinking and who you really, really, really should be voting for. And that was just emblematic of that whole campaign. So that's really the issue right now. I think the people who lecture and the people get lectured to, and they're tired of it.
I have to say we knew this guy was going to get convicted. His DNA was under her fingernails. It was very clear. He was on videotape. The evidence against him was dead to rights. His name is Jose Ibarra, 26-year-old illegal from Venezuela, found guilty by a judge. And her poor mother, I mean, this is one of the women I mentioned by name when I spoke for Trump the night before the election, that I'd be thinking of Laken Riley on Tuesday, November 5th. And I was. And I have been for a while, as I know so many millions have, because this girl's story was just emblematic of so many who have been killed by Joe Biden and Kamala Harris's reckless border policies. Right now, they're trying to make it easier for immigrants to cross the border, right this second in his last 2 months in office, because he hasn't done enough damage. And you think about folks like her mom, who testified yesterday on Tuesday, that she missed Laken's final text and phone call. Laken had texted her, "Good morning, about to go for a run. Are you free to talk?" At 8:55 a.m. on Feb 22, before then trying her mom by phone less than 10 minutes later at 9:03. Within 7 minutes, she would be attacked by this illegal. And her dad, her stepfather, John Phillips, read one of Laken's final diary entries to her future husband in court. I'm going to play it. It's hard to listen to, but this is the real life toll of these leftist border policies. Listen.
To my future husband, I want you to know that I'm thinking about you. I'm working every day to become the best wife I can be. By working through my current relationships to best prepare me for ours and our kids one day. And can't wait to love you in the best way I know how for the rest of our lives. No matter what challenges we face, I pray that our trust in God and love for one another overrules the obstacle. May our relationship last forever. Your future wife, Laken.
Just one final thing, Victor. He did not get the death penalty because he had one of these woke prosecutors who, despite the fact that Georgia allows the death penalty, did not personally believe in it. And so this guy will live on the taxpayer's dime until he dies a natural death in prison.
Yeah, I think everybody who watches that ask a Nancy Pelosi or Joe Biden or Kamala Harris, what did you think was going to happen? Or Alejandro Mayorkas, what did you think was going to happen when you let 12 million people in with no criminal background checks, no health background, from places like Colombia or Venezuela, where gangs are rampant, or the Mexican cartels? And what did you think was going to happen? What would they do? They were wolves coming in to shear sheep. Was the idea that you wanted that? It was just nihilistic. Why were you doing that? And why did you think that you would unleash that flood upon innocent people like Laken Riley? And was it predicated on the idea that you were so protected, your neighborhood or the people you associate, or your money or influence, that you would not only not experience these things, but you didn't care about the people who did? And, just living out here, Megyn, I have right now about 1,000-pound freezer, washer, dryer in my orchard that was just dumped by people. And I can tell you, all of the garbage is all in Spanish, dumped. Wet diapers, dumped. I've had semi-trucks dumped. And we've had a person found a corpse in our orchard, dumped.
Oh my God.
And nobody, that person probably committed suicide, but they don't know. But it's I don't think people realize it. I know where I work at Stanford, where it's got that same mentality of the Biden administration. They condemn as illiberal or reactionary or mean-spirited or xenophobic or racist anybody who wants to have legal, measured, orderly immigration, because they never experience the downside. And when you say things to them Well, if you want 12 million people to come in, you're worried about housing and healthcare. Stanford University has about 10,000 billets in the summer of empty dorms. They have one of the best medical schools in the world. They have a law school for legal counsel. They have all these student interns that could help. Why don't you volunteer to take 7 or 8,000 illegal aliens and let them stay in the campus for the summer? And they go ballistic when you say that. How dare you say that? Same reaction you get from the Martha Vineyard people. We will love these people. When is the bus coming to get them out of here? Here's some care packages.
They enriched our lives in the 72 hours they were here.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so that's what it's all about.
Here's 2 other things on it. John Hassan on X noticed this. Washington Post, AP, New York Times all refused to describe Laken Riley's murderer as an illegal immigrant. And he's exactly right. Washington Post, Venezuelan national. Jose Ibarra found guilty of murdering. AP doesn't say anything. A man was convicted of murder in the killing of Laken Riley. New York Times, a Venezuelan migrant. Nothing about the fact that he's here illegally and is part of this Venezuelan gang. We're not allowed to talk about it. And final point on it, Allie Beth Stuckey posted this on X. No black squares for Laken, no riots, no demands to listen and learn, no lectures on progressive fragility, no scolding from social justice, Christians. They're angrier when a violent criminal is confronted by the police than they are when an innocent woman is murdered while jogging. They're more outraged when an illegal Haitian immigrant gets his shirt pulled by a Border Patrol agent at the border. Remember that the next time they launch another manipulation campaign. Boy, that sums it up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it does. And they're not going to stop until they're forced to stop. And that 100-day metamorphosis of Kamala Harris, we all know that if she had won, she was going to go right back to her open borders policy. And when she's lost, she will go as a lame duck vice president right back to the policy, which we see already being enacted by Joe Biden. They've already tried to create more apps to let people in a final influx. There's a caravan forming. That was all just 100 days of cynical falsity that they explained that they wanted to secure the border, and I'm against illegal immigration. That was one of the most insincere, fraudulent campaigns we've ever seen. On that 100-day facade that they were going to worry about the victims of illegal immigration, or they were going to stop illegal immigration, or restore the border, or they were going to worry about crime, or fracking, or a strong military. None of that. That was even worse because they knew that's what the people wanted, and they did not want to give what the people wanted because they thought the people were stupid, and their friends and their associates were smart, and therefore they were going to fool the people one last time before they reverted back after they got. And the people said, I'm had it with you. I've seen that you're a one-eyed jack. I've seen the other side of you. I don't want you anymore. And that's where we are now politically.
Now you got the governor of Massachusetts saying she's not going to cooperate with Tom Homan and his efforts to pull the illegals out of the country, including the criminal ones, the ones who have committed additional serious violent felonies. She's not cooperating. This as our Border Patrol, ICE that is, has just gone into Massachusetts, her state, and arrested 3, count them 3, child rapists who are here illegally, raping, in 2 cases, American children. One was a child rapist from Brazil who came up here when he got caught for doing that there. 2 others are raping American children here. And she's sitting there saying, we won't cooperate. When these people get arrested for crimes in Massachusetts, we won't tell ICE so they can be deported. We refuse to do that. Well, we'll just see about that, Governor. We'll just see whether the people of Massachusetts are okay with Governor Maura Healey's plan to let all the pedophile rapists stay in Massachusetts. Because guess what that does? It creates a magnet for them all to go there. Good luck, folks in the Commonwealth. I'd much rather be in a state that says we're not doing that and the illegals get word of it and then they don't come here. This is just so wrong. It's why it's an issue that you've been speaking out on for as long as we've known you, VDH. Thank you. Thanks so much for being here. It's a pleasure.
Thank you for having me, Megyn.
Okay, coming up, we're going to finish it up on a Friday with something fun, and that is the Ladies of Red Scare. They are right here. I'm really looking forward to this, and maybe a martini. Next. What's the cause of many health problems in America today? It's simple. shitty food. Food that is engineered to keep us addicted, offering zero real nutrition, crafted by mega corporations that prioritize profit over our well-being. Our food system is broken, and we just cannot rely on big food to put our health first, as you know. If you are skeptical of the ingredients in the food you buy, and you should be, or if you're looking for something new you can trust, I want to introduce you to Kettle and Fire bone broth. Kettle and Fire is not just any broth. It's made using 100% grass-fed and free-range bones, slow-simmered for over 14 hours to extract critical nutrients your body needs to thrive. It's high in protein, and better yet, each recipe is crafted by world-class chefs to ensure the best taste possible. This is the bone broth I use, and I've been using this for a couple years now. So with Thanksgiving right around the corner, consider using Kettle and Fire's broths to add rich, delicious flavor. No artificial flavors, no harmful pesticides. It's just simple ingredients to support your health. Find Kettle and Fire in the broth aisle at grocery stores nationwide. And for a limited time, my viewers and listeners get 15% off by going to kettleandfire.com/MK. That's kettleandfire.com/MK. That's where I get it online. Or pick it up at your next grocery store trip. Kettle and Fire. Play with your food, not your health. There is an epidemic affecting 2 out of every 3 Americans. Poor gut health. Processed foods, stress at work, fluoride in the water, even toxins in the air you breathe can overwhelm your digestive system. You might expect to feel the bloating and the heartburn, but sleepless nights, afternoon crashes, mood swings, these are all signs your gut may need some help. While most probiotics get torn apart in your stomach acid, the spore-based strains in Just Thrive probiotic are clinically proven to arrive in your gut 100% alive, creating a fortress of good bacteria that can support digestion, immune system, and mental clarity. Just Thrive probiotic is non-GMO and gluten-free, and you can choose between berry-flavored gummies or easy-to-swallow capsules. You can even open the capsule and mix the contents in your morning coffee or sprinkle it on your food. For over a decade, Just Thrive has been fighting to make Americans healthy again with science-backed solutions you can trust. To join the gut health revolution, visit justthrivehealth.com, justthrivehealth.com, and save 20% site-wide with promo code Megyn. That's justthrivehealth.com, promo code Megyn. The culture war between the left and the right is heating up after Trump's landslide win. Nancy Mace continues to stand strong in her fight to keep women's spaces safe. You'll not believe Katie Couric's attack on her. Meanwhile, is MAGA cool now? Joining me in studio to discuss it all, the hosts of the Red Scare podcast, very popular show. Anna it's better when I say it, Kachian. Yeah. And Dasha Nekrasova. Yep. Great to have you here. They were first with us back on episode 336 in 2022. Welcome back.
Thanks for having us.
Great to have you. And cheers.
Cheers.
It's such a pleasure. We did bust out the martinis. When we have somebody for the first time in the studio who likes to drink like I do, and we have one of these.
We always do. Yeah. It's how we.
And we busted out our Christmas trees for you.
We noticed.
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
You guys are so ahead of the curve.
I mean, it's before Thanksgiving, but Thanksgiving's late this year. Like, if we wait until after Thanksgiving, we're not going to get enough of the trees.
Right. And you have a ton.
And here in Connecticut, there was snow on the ground this morning.
Whoa.
Yeah, it was amazing. So
heard,
this could kind of be real. All right, so let's talk about it. You guys went from Bernie bros to Trump supporters. You basically had the same arc as Joe Rogan. How did that happen?
Well, Anna hates this because Anna wasn't ever really a proper Bernie bro.
I will go on record and say that I've never been a leftist or a Bernie bro.
Okay.
I've always been a Trump supporter, but I was playing it cool and not going too hard on it because, I'll be frank about it, out of social cowardice, because I didn't want to fear any reprisals or repercussions. But if you listen to those early episodes, you can hear
Closeted.
Crypto MAGA.
Crypto.
I mean, people say that we did like a right-wing pivot, maybe cynically, but I don't really see it that way. I think like the center just shifted so drastically left. And when I was a Bernie-crat in 2016 and registered as a Democrat to vote for him in the primaries, it was a very different political landscape.
I totally relate to this because people have said that about me too, that it was like a money ploy to try to get an audience to, switch on Trump, to like change my views on Trump. And I actually did change my views on Trump. I was not his fan back in 2016 for all sorts of other reasons. I didn't mind his policies. I just didn't like him. And it's like, well, then if it was a cynical ploy for you and it was a money ploy for me, what happened to like Joe Rogan? Because he didn't, what happened to millions of Americans? The whole country shifted right by, some 5, 6, in some cases 10 or more points. Was it all a cynical ploy?
Well, again, they shifted right of center, which was more left than, so
exactly. When the center moves left, you've necessarily found yourself,
to the right of,
even though you haven't moved your feet.
Exactly.
Yeah, and like what the liberals and Democrats want to do now is shift the burden of proof from themselves onto everyone else to explain why there's a massive popular mandate for Trump, which just doesn't add up. I told myself I wasn't going to gloat, but I felt truly vindicated because my home state of New Jersey only lost Trump by 5 points.
I know. Wasn't that amazing?
Yeah, it's amazing.
I know. We go to New Jersey in the summers, and I was thrilled. I feel like Phil Murphy needs to feel the pain of the state becoming more and more red, because that nutcase right there is trying to bring in those windmills to ruin the views and the safety along the Jersey Shore and kill the whales, which really is a thing. And he hopefully now will listen that neither his residents nor the rest of the country wants that agenda. He should have realized it when he almost lost by a few points his reelection.
Yeah, and the same in New York, too. The same effect, a little higher, right? It was 11 points. But across the board, you see these like sweeping demographic changes of people shifting over to Trump, even in like traditionally deep blue strongholds.
Like Manhattan. Right?
Yeah.
Did you ever think you'd see the day? They didn't go for Trump, but they shifted toward Trump in double digits all over New York, the 5 boroughs. Well, we've been talking about, and I know you guys have too, one of the main issues and the number one issue for swing state voters is the trans issue. They said that in Democratic polling. There was a long postmortem, and they said in the swing states in particular, that was the number one issue. Too much focus on the trans stuff in particular by Democrats and not enough on the things that actually drive their lives and their concerns. And it's been very interesting to see this come to Capitol Hill this week. And Nancy Mace, who I think was probably inherently on our side on this issue, but like wasn't really focused on it, has now been woken up and is out there fighting this battle successfully on Capitol Hill. So then yesterday she goes to speak. Where was she when she got attacked? I don't know. My team will tell me. But she did get attacked by some trans activist. And here's a little bit of what happened.
It's ridiculous. It is the day after Trans Day of Visibility. We have had dozens of trans people die this year because of the hate and lies that you are spreading. And if we want an internet, are we building an internet with free speech for everyone or just the privileged few? Are you going to stand up to the lives of trans people, black and brown people? Are we fighting for justice or are we fighting for big tech? I thought we were fighting for justice here.
That his penis isn't going to be in my bathroom. So, at any rate, but we have a responsibility. If you're pro man watching me undress in a dressing room, you're part of the problem.
Yes, it was Georgetown University.
I mean, the trans stuff, I think it was like the silent majority really felt an instinct against it, and now maybe feel a new freedom to speak on it. And to me, it's clear that the issue isn't even necessarily that like gender politics, that people are trans or wokeism. It's that like there's been an ideological capture of the institutions. Like if you go to the hospital to give birth and they call you a birthing person, that erodes trust. And what woke ideology has done broadly is just eroded trust in like a lot of like legacy institutions.
Absolutely right.
I get automated text messages from my insurance company that say something like, did you know that people who have had their uteruses removed are still at risk for cervical cancer? Get your pap smear now.
People.
Can I spurg on this issue for a minute?
Yeah.
I saw you posting about autogynephilia, and I was like J.D. Vance meme face, like ding, ding, ding. Because the most interesting thing to me about the trans issue is that the people pushing for it, the trans agenda, are not who you would expect. They're not the people that you would typically associate with being trans or identify as trans. It's not the young gay guys who want to pass as women because they want access to straight men and do, frankly, a pretty good job of passing. It's not the young tomboy girls who, as you mentioned, maybe have a history of sexual abuse or a history of obsessive thought patterns. It's two separate groups. Number one, it's autogynephiles who are straight men who have a paraphilia where they're sexually aroused by the thought of themselves dressed as women. These guys tend to be older. They're high achieving, high IQ, high aggression. They're very good at like making themselves heard. I've said this before and I'll say it again.
It gets them off because they think being a woman is degrading.
Yes. Yeah.
Right.
And they get off on like people reacting badly to them.
Exactly. Yeah. It's like covert narcissism. They're like, I'm telling you everything I am, but if you react badly, you're the problem. And I never thought the patriarchy was real until I started getting bullied by these guys on the internet.
So interesting.
And then the second group, I think, are people who are not even trans. They would probably be identified as allies. It's like liberal women and male feminists who maybe identify as queer or suffer from Munchausen by proxy. And all of those people are very locked into like the medical industrial complex. And for me, like having looked into this, studied this for a long time, I think the name of the game is they want to collapse all these categories together for maximum victim status and plausible deniability. The people leading the charge are like the Jennifer Pritzkers of the world.
Right. Exactly right. The Pritzker family. And I'm sick of being lectured to by this Illinois governor who doesn't acknowledge what his family has been doing to our children. Now they're talking about him running for president. Okay. You know what? I will campaign in the streets against that guy to make clear what they've been doing. But okay, you said so many good things in there. I don't know. I have to ask my team. Do we have the AOC shot where she's going off about what's happening? Did you guys see her going off
Nancy
about
Mace
how
wants to pull down your pants and inspect your genitalia.
Yes, we do have it. Good for my team. I don't know if I have the wrong SOT list, you guys. I have the VDH SOT list and not my Red Scare one. In any event, here's AOC.
What Nancy Mace and what Speaker Johnson are doing are endangering all women and girls. Because if you ask them, what is your plan on how to enforce this? They won't come up with an answer. And what it inevitably results in are women and girls who are primed for assault because people are going to want to check their private parts doing what. And so the idea that Nancy Mace wants little girls and women to drop trow in front of who? An investigator? Is disgusting. It is disgusting. And frankly, all it does is allow these Republicans to go around and bully any woman who isn't wearing a skirt. And if a woman doesn't look woman enough to a Republican, they want to be able to inspect her genitals to use a bathroom. It's disgusting. They're endangering women. They're endangering girls of all kinds.
I mean, that's just not true.
Women and girls of all kinds.
Right. But there's so much in there.
Yeah.
So that, to your point, Dasha, you hit the nail right on the head. These guys, these autogynephiles, get off on dressing like us, pretending that they're us, and then being shamed about it. And so what she's referencing there is one of those perverted little fantasies you will find in the dark trans chat rooms about how they want to be told they're bad little girls and they have to lift up their dresses to show their private parts. I'd love to know what portions of the internet she's on, because she just revealed something about herself that I don't think she knows she revealed. That's sick. Literally no one's talking about that other than the pervs in these chat rooms.
I mean, you said on a recent episode that there already are gender neutral bathrooms in Washington.
Right.
The fact that they want explicitly to go into a women's bathroom, like, why are you so obsessed with going to the bathroom?
Right. I told them I was going to pay for them to build one if they didn't have one. Turns out they already have them. So what's the controversy?
Yeah. And this person who attacked Nancy Mace with his her deep voice,
Yes.
And they're citing these statistics of trans people who have been murdered. Like the trans people who are vulnerable are not AGPs.
No, they're gay, literally they're homosexual, transsexuals. Yeah,
that's exactly right. So this is Blanchard, right? Richard Blanchard. I think I called him Blanchard the other day.
Blanchard, yeah.
But Blanchard is the one who took a deep dive into trans people, and in particular, so-called trans women, which is just not a thing. It's men pretending to be women.
Well, there are
there's people with gender dysphoria.
There's two categories.
Well, that's where I'm going. Yeah. So what he found is that people who say they're trans break down generally into two categories. One is gay men, more effeminate gay little boys.
Homosexual transsexuals.
There you go.
Yeah, and they're going to be often like younger, black and brown versus white, lower income. They're the ones who are really at risk because they often engage in prostitution. They suffer from drug addiction. Those are the guys, women, getting raped and murdered in the streets, usually by members of their own community.
And then, according to Blanchard, it's 93%, 91 or 93% are actually autogynephiles. So the overwhelming odds that if you meet a man pretending to be a woman are that he is one of these, I get off on dressing like a woman and I get off on being shamed, and God only knows what's happening in the bathroom stall next to you. And you, for so long, have been shamed out of acknowledging that or even speaking of it to the point where we don't anymore. And now, if you try to, forget even getting into that, but if you just say, I don't want them in my bathroom, I don't want them in my locker room, you get shamed. Only now are we starting to like find our voices.
Right. It's one thing to actively oppress someone and another thing to like participate in their delusion and mental illness.
Right.
Which is what they ostensibly want to force us to do.
You know, Deborah So, she wrote, God, what was her book, you guys? She was so good. I love her. She's brilliant. She came on the show early on. And she's a PhD, The End of Gender. And she wrote this great book called The End of Gender. And she's a PhD, and she's a specialist in sexual fetishes. And she was saying there's bizarre ones out there. And I said, what's like the most one? Walk us through it. Some people really get off on imagining that they're being eaten by an animal.
That sounds Japanese.
I'm like how? And she said like, they take in porn that shows like an imaginary, I don't know, it could be like dragon, whatever, that's eating you. I don't know.
It's called vor.
I mean, there's furries around. Like, do you guys ever think about the fact that furries still exist and we have to tolerate them?
Right. Yeah. So I do not want to participate in that. I do not want to be next to the guy when he is sketching out the dragon eating him and whatever that does to him down south. I don't want to be anywhere near it. I don't care if that's what he does in his home when he's alone.
Yeah.
But they're asking us to let that not only into our lives, but into our lives in the most vulnerable spaces for us. And it is not just bathrooms and locker rooms and sports and prisons. It's actually, we've talked about this a few times. They're coming into the breast cancer hospitals where we have to go for the mammograms. They're going into the OBGYNs. They have nothing to examine down there. They have a surgical created hole at best. It does not need to be examined by an OBGYN, and I don't need to wait an extra 10 minutes for that man. He needs to go back to his surgeon to see if he's healing correctly.
And you know when you're like at the OBGYN or getting a mammogram, you already, can I curse on this show?
Yeah,
you already feel like shit and you're nervous and you want to be alone in your own feminine space. You don't want to be around a pervert who's like secretly jerking off to your pain and misery.
Correct. That's the truth of it. So in the midst of all this, again, to your point about who's reacting to Nancy Mace and others like her, enters Katie Couric, who just, truly embodies Upper East Side elite privilege. Both of her daughters went to the top schools for college. They went to the top schools, New York City privates. There was a time in which I knew her a bit personally, and she used to be somewhat reasonable when I knew her. She was always a liberal, but she's leaned into that upper echelon of liberals now where you have to be woke in order to have currency. And she reacts to Nancy Mace saying, I don't want men in the women's bathrooms as follows.
Hey everyone, I'm just so disappointed that this Nancy Mace, a Republican from South Carolina, is being so rude and, I don't know, just bigoted against Sarah McBride. And it just seems nasty and mean and cruel because she is the only member who is now forbidden to use the ladies' room. And it's just shitty, you know? People are just mean, aren't they? It really makes me mad.
He is not the only member not permitted to use the ladies' room. All the men are also not permitted to use it.
Right.
And that's what Sarah is.
And they have
nasty, mean, cruel, and shitty.
Mm-hmm. I mean, that's like classic boomer. The only demographic that didn't shift towards Trump was people over 65.
Mm-hmm.
And
I love that. I love the slow burn of your response.
But you know what I mean?
Okay,
and they don't like Trump because they think he's mean and rude and uncivil, and they find him distasteful. But they don't really stop to ask themselves, like, maybe they're the only demographic because they're sheltered and sequestered away from like what's really going on in the world.
How people really feel.
Yeah.
About issues like this one.
Of course it's mean and nasty. I wish we didn't have to talk about that.
Yeah. Right. But I mean, but it's not mean, because somebody once explained to me, it was a therapist of mine who was like, it was with respect to my first husband. Mm-hmm. We ended the marriage amicably, but I remember the therapist saying, like, you should tell him those things you just said. And I said, well, no, that's mean. Mm-hmm. And the therapist said, it's not mean to tell the truth. Like, cruelty is saying something with the intention of hurting the other person. You say it because you want to hurt them. But being honest about how you actually feel is not cruel. It's not mean. And that's what's happening. It's not mean to say to a man posing as a woman, Tim to Sarah, you may not come into our private spaces, the spaces in which we're lifting up our dresses and pulling down our pants. The hard no.
Yeah. Yeah. And what's so depressing is that these people have effectively combined all the worst qualities of men and women. Like they've literally mashed up men's obsessiveness and aggression with women's avoidance of responsibility for their actions.
I mean, it's just not fair. They're so much stronger and smarter than us anyway, because they're high IQ males.
Yeah. What's next? They can't drive, nor can they ask for directions. They combine all of the worst things. That's amazing.
They are talking about toxic masculinity. You know, they're the worst.
There it is. Okay, so do we think it's going to change at all? Now that there's been, they had the one guy, Scott Pressler of Massachusetts, who was like, I'm secretly on the side of reason, even though he pushed all the legislation mandating boys and girls. Seth Moulton. I
was going to say Scott Pressler.
No, Scott Pressler I love. I love him. He's the guy who helped Trump win Pennsylvania. So he says, okay, I have to be honest now. I'm not in favor of this. But almost everybody else is doubling and tripling down and shaming guys like Seth Moulton for even saying this. So do we think the left will change?
What do you mean? Like, will
they see reason?
And ID poll be tempered?
What was this? ID poll? Is that your short for identity politics? I like it.
I don't know. That's a really good question. I've seen a lot of people, because after Trump won, everybody, including liberals, breathed a sigh of relief. The vibe on the street was peaceful, and it wasn't exactly enthusiastic, but people were reconciled to it. I saw that you guys had that Jaguar commercial on the docket.
Oh my God.
And
we have to talk about it.
It reminded me of the most recent episode of Saturday Night Live with Charlie XCX, and it's very clear what happened with both of those things, which were very clearly in development before Trump won the election. And with the SNL episode, they were hoping to have some epic brat memes on how Kamala owned, and they had to throw them in the dustbin and just run Charlie as a pop star. I don't think that
Charlie's the one behind that whole brat.
The brat, yeah.
She adopted.
I don't think wokeness is over, because you have to remember that it's really, really entrenched in the cultural institutions and federal bureaucracies, and those people are still running things. And so I have a lot of hope that guys like Vivek and Elon will try to take care of it. Yeah.
Here's the, this is disgusting, the Jaguar ad. We must look at it. I'm sorry, but we must.
No.
Here it is. It appears to be a man with breasts. I don't know what that is. I don't know. Now it says live vivid, delete ordinary.
Reminds me of the Olympics.
Here's another man in a dress.
Ceremony.
Break molds. Clearly a man. Everyone's androgynous with very weird hair. Copy nothing. Don't worry, we won't be copying you, Jaguar. Let me just tell you something about Jaguar. When I was very young and fresh out of law school, I went to this firm, Bickle and Brewer. Mm-hmm. It was a great firm, like cutthroat litigators. Like they were like kill or be killed. And I loved that. It was very sexy when you were 25 years old. Mm-hmm. And when you made partner at Bickle and Brewer, you got a Jaguar.
Wow.
Yeah, it was a great thing. And the guys who ran Bickle and Brewer, especially Bill Brewer, who I know still to this day, the chiseled jaw, like the great suit with the pocket square, and good-looking guy. He looks a little like Robert Redford. And John Bickle, the same. And there was an image with the Jaguar that is what made them want to give the partners of Bickle and Brewer, right? So like, it was cool. It was like sort of effortlessly F you cool. Mm-hmm. This, I mean, I don't know whether Bickle and Brewer is still doing that, but guarantee you, if everybody's sold their Jaguar, there is zero chance my former friends, my friends and former colleagues at Bickle and Brewer are doing. This is a Bud Light moment.
Well, I think they're unveiling, go woke, go broke, like Bud Light. I think they're unveiling like an electric car or something, and that's,
electric cars aren't gay.
They're gay.
They're not trans.
Well, hence copy nothing, because they're trying to differentiate themselves maybe from Tesla. I think Anna's right that this was something that was in development at marketing prior to the Trump campaign winning. And it just seems extremely out of touch and irrelevant.
Right?
Well, to their credit, everybody in the ad is thin.
Yeah, right.
So that's a big deal.
Here is the guy, Santino Pietrosanti, speaking about Jaguar. He's like their, marketing guy or spokesperson. He's high up and he's the one behind this. Speaking at the Attitude Awards 2024.
We're seeing progress threatened, freedoms questioned, and our rights rolled back. And we're committed to fostering a diverse, inclusive, and unified culture, a culture where our employees can bring their authentic selves to work. And we're on a transformative journey of our own, driven by a belief in diversity, inclusion, creativity. We've established over 15 DEI groups such as Pride, Women in Engineering, and Neurodiversity Matters.
There's too many groups.
We've launched major policy revisions such as transitioning at work to drive equity. Not just talking about new cars, we are talking about all new ways of thinking and embracing the full spectrum of human potential and creativity.
He's wearing a mesh shirt, first of all. Yeah. Elon responded to that ad with, "Do you sell cars?" That's how I feel listening to him there. Yeah. Do you or don't you?
I thought we were selling cars.
Right?
It's amazing news because woke people can't drive, so they're not really.
This should be a scooter company.
Yeah.
That's like, who would drive, who
Maybe that's what they're pivoting towards,
to the Jaguar now. Truly, who would drive that? Isn't it about, like, I wouldn't be caught dead driving a Jaguar right now. And I have to say, I actually just had to buy a new car because my lease expired. And I looked into Jaguar just to see, because I had a good affiliation given my years at Bickle and Brewer, these cool guys who I loved. No, it's over. Thank God. I dodged a bullet there.
Yeah. What kind of car did you get?
I got another BMW.
Nice.
I have a BMW now.
Classic.
I like it because it's sporty, but it's, it drives
leather
great.
Interior.
Yeah.
Cool.
And I mean, it really accelerates very easily.
Yeah.
I like that about it. It's fine.
Yeah.
What do you guys drive?
I don't know how to drive.
What do you mean?
I don't know how to drive a car.
I have a Volvo.
Wait, Volvo, they just released the best ad ever.
Okay.
I don't know if you saw this on the internet. I don't have this one ready. Maybe we'll drop it in.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I've actually got something to tell you. Kate's pregnant.
Oh, I'm joking.
You're gonna be a grandma.
But it was great. It's the opposite of that ad we just saw, where it has a man and a woman, both attractive. Hello, I don't have to tell you, you're in Succession, you're a successful actress. We like attractive people. If you're going to be on camera, try a little.
Yeah.
So,
sure.
by the way, Katie Couric should take that lesson. Why did she go without makeup on her close-up commentary? There's no point.
Well, that's the new thing
like
among
authentic,
aging women,
yeah.
like Paulina Porzakova and Linda Evangelista, where they do like the Instagram stories, no makeup.
Okay, but
signal
she's
authenticity.
not Paulina.
No, yeah.
All right, so like, if I were Linda Evangelista, maybe I would do it. News women like us, Katie, we need to put on the face paint. Anywho, Volvo put out this beautiful ad of like a young hot guy with his wife, and she clearly is coming over with that look, and she's telling him she's pregnant, and then he talks to his mom, and he's like, I'm worried, I don't know, can I take care of them? Then they give birth to a daughter, and he's trying to take care of his daughter, and the Volvo is like driving in all the scenes. Brilliant. Like leaning into just family and love, the nuclear family, how this looks, how we sell, how the vast majority of people live. So now we all have to buy Volvos.
I mean, I think in terms of wokeness being over, yeah, like it is pretty entrenched in the bureaucracy. But as far as media goes, like the people have a bottom line. People want to make money. You know, if the ratings aren't there, if things aren't making money, if the Jaguars aren't selling, eventually it might not happen overnight, but things will pivot towards a more like, honestly, not even right, like center direction.
Normal.
Yeah.
Normal.
Yeah.
It's not even like positional.
Yeah, and I think now for the first time ever, we have a counterweight, which is the independent media, podcasts, live streams, all of these things that people kind of poo-poo and belittle, but that actually played an important role in getting Trump across the finish line.
Yes.
And now that there's this counterbalance, I think corporations will probably feel a little freer in sticking with their own values. And the big question I always had about wokeness, because the long-time justification for wokeness among sophisticated and rational people was that, oh, well, it's just like economically sound. It's good for profit. But I don't think it is. I think it
You used to get a score from the
lot
Human Rights Campaign, which everybody wanted to be
Yeah.
like a positive score. It was just a rabidly pro-trans group now. Used to be just pro-gay rights and equality, and now it's just rabidly pro-trans.
Yeah.
But now, bit by bit, more and more corporations have said, we don't care what our score is from you.
Yeah. I mean, 15 DEI groups at Jaguar.
Oh,
That's-
15.
How is that possible?
What are
I
they
can't
looking
even
at?
think of 15
Like,
groups that
who's
could
looking at
possibly
the
need
engine?
something like that.
I'm just curious whether we've covered that.
Yeah.
I was talking with VDH about the implosion of MSNBC in the wake of Trump's victory. I think it's both because people are depressed on the left, and I do think people are realizing they've been lied to. They were not given the straight scoop by anybody.
700,000 viewers a night.
That's when I was on Fox, it was like 4 million
Yeah.
easily. In the demo, we'd have 700,000, like the 25 to 54. The overall, that's alarming. And this is something I saw, you guys saw this, but I was discussing with my pal, Paul Murray of Sky News, Australia. So I go on with him once a week. I love Paul Murray. He's just so fun. I love talking to him. I don't do any other like extraneous news hit, but I do this one because I just love this guy. And I was mocking those two. And I was mocking Mika Brzezinski, champion of women, and what a like strong feminist she is. And this clip wound up, unforeseeably everywhere. And it even caught the notice of Red Scare. Here's a bit of it. They were on the cover of, was it New York Magazine 10 years ago? And you have a picture of the two of them where Joe Scarborough is like this. I think he might have his feet up on the table. It's like a power pose for him. And she is up there. This isn't, I'm not dressed for this, but I'm going to show you. Okay.
Yeah, come here. Thank you. Oh!
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh my God, I should not be doing this. That's what she did. And he's sitting there in the power position like, yeah, do it, baby. Pose, show him your brain. So I am so over her she's about women's rights and empowerment and rapist this. You're full of shit, and we all know it.
Yeah. And they went to Mar-a-Lago.
Yeah, exactly.
They were eager to.
Megyn, Dasha has to teach you how to crab
There's
walk.
the image. Vanity Fair.
Yeah,
Look at this. I'm sorry, but is this not one of the most sexist things you've ever laid eyes upon? Look at her.
She's like Betty Boop.
She doesn't get to look in the camera. She's got to look at him. You see?
Yeah.
She's looking at him, but he's looking into the camera. He's got the power pose with like the man spread cross-legged thing. And she's got leg up to the hoo-ha.
I mean, she looks cute.
She looks cute.
She looks fine.
He looks powerful. But my issue with this image is that it's fake. It's a fantasy because in reality, she's the one bossing him around.
Do we know that? I don't think
That's
that.
what I think.
He's such a prick. I feel like it's him.
Maybe.
Let me tell you something. He came on my show on Fox News one time. He requested. I'm like, all right, fine, you can come on. And but can we keep this going past? You guys can stay a little longer.
Sure,
yes?
yeah.
Okay. All right, we're going to say goodbye to our lovely SiriusXM audience in about a minute, but we can keep it rolling after. He came on my show on Fox News to promote something. I said, all right, fine, I'll do it. And I made a joke about how he has four viewers. Well, he didn't. He was like, gave me the look of death.
Yeah.
And the death stare, and couldn't really get past it. It was like, all right, we were crushing them at Fox. It was such a joke to compare the two ratings. Like, he had to expect a little guff from a competitor who was throwing him a bone by letting him, promote his stuff. He couldn't get over it. He was a prick for the interview. I never received so many emails as I did from his staff over at MSNBC saying, thank God, good for you. You did it. He's such an asshole. They all hate him. So I don't know that she's in the power. I feel like he's probably very domineering.
Maybe
Well,
you're
often
right.
powerful men like to, Yeah.
I also,
stomped on.
full disclosure, just learned who Joe and Mika were like this morning.
That's
on the way over here. We're
you
so
sent us
ignorant.
the docket and
we're
we were
so
like,
ignorant. But Glenn
That's how
Greenwald
irrelevant.
had the best take on this.
Amazing.
Where he was like, okay, all these people in the mainstream media, I'm guessing they're mainstream media, were whipped into hysterics. Were telling us for 10 years that
He was Hitler. Wait, hold that
Trump
thought.
Was literally
I've got to say goodbye to SiriusXM. Hear the rest of Anna's take over on podcast and youtube.com/Megyn Kelly. While we're on the topic of lunatic leftist media, there's a couple of fun things I have for you. Yeah. Let's look at, she used to be respected. The Washington Post's Jennifer Rubin. And not only was she respected, she was considered their conservative commentator. She might be, I guess not number one, but she's in the top 10% of people suffering from TDS, right? Like, it's rabid. It's gone. It's like, what happens when you get bitten by the sick raccoon, the rabies. And like the frothing of the mouth? It's set in. It's set in full Little House on the Prairie style. We'll pull the clip. Here she is.
You can't talk broad themes. You have to boil it down to nuts and bolts, and you have to be pithy. What do I mean by pithy? How about this? Republicans want to kill your kids. It's actually true. If you're going to oppose vaccinations, if you're going to stop breakthrough medical research, if you're going to allow minors and all sorts of people to get semi-automatic weapons, which they use to shoot up schools, well, then you are responsible for kids' health and death, unfortunately. It has to be that simple and that direct, and it has to be over and over and over again.
So what they need to do, in other words, is ramp up the rhetoric about Republicans. And that will be a game changer, you see.
Yeah.
How did that work? Like 2 weeks ago.
I mean, it really alienated people.
Do you believe they're still deluding themselves into believing this crap will work?
I mean, what about giving them puberty blockers?
Yeah.
You know?
Or chopping off their body parts.
It's like Dr. Mengele style medical experimentation, which nobody talks about. And
right.
I feel like history, if there are any historians left, will not look kindly to this era.
I mean, it just feels like such an inverse of like Republicans don't want to kill kids.
Right. No. Nor do they want school shootings.
No.
They believe that it's a problem of mental health.
I think like the worst thing you can say about mainline Republicans is that sometimes they will agree to use their kids as political pawns. but I don't think that they have that kind of anti-natalist, anti-life bent that left libs have.
No. And plus, it's like, I mean, whatever, you didn't get going on the topic of abortion, but it's fine. I mean, good people have different points of view on that. But just to reduce the Republican Party down to what they want to kill children, no one's going to believe that. You already played the Hitler card. Once you play that once...
Well, yeah, but that's what's so perplexing for me, that Glenn was saying that they have played the Hitler card for years. He's literally worse than anybody ever in the history of the earth, except for Hitler.
Except for real Hitler.
Except for actual Hitler. He's an absolute threat to our democracy. He's hell-bent on destroying democracy. And then you're going to do a photo op of you and him shaking hands, and you're going to fly to his beachfront property, and you're going to fall in line and kiss the ring.
Yeah.
And so which one is it? I mean, okay, Bill Maher, who's a friend of yours, I'm guessing you guys have been on each other's show.
Yeah, we've been on each other's show. I think we have a mutual respect.
Right. I have a question for him. How can he sit across from you?
A Hitler supporter.
Who are, a loyal and avowed Hitler supporter, and talk about how Trump is not only a vulgarian, but a threat to democracy.
Yeah. Bill is a complicated case.
Sure.
He definitely loathes Trump.
Wow.
With the passion of 10,000 suns. But he's not woke. He's such an interesting guy because he's a non-woke liberal.
Well, it's an issue, like I was saying with boomers, of like decorum.
Yeah.
They just don't. They find him distasteful, especially like the elites.
Yeah,
yeah.
And in that way, the Jaguar ad too. It's like you're selling a luxury product, so you think you're pandering towards like people who can afford Jaguars, who you think are going to fall in line with like DEI woke ideology. But I think that is shifting, and people are just becoming more realistic.
Well, and the real people who are buying Jaguars are like plumbers in Central Jersey who made a ton of money off of their
not anymore
small business. But if I were to psychoanalyze Bill Maher and all the rest of these boomers, some of whom I really like and respect, it's really the narcissism of small differences. He's mad because Trump beats him at his own game, which is being...
Oh, they have a personal history too. Trump sued him.
Okay, well, there you go.
Interesting.
But I mean, Trump and I have a personal history. Like, you can check that and move past it.
Yes.
Blood coming out of wherever.
Can I?
You remember?
Can I
that was unpleasant.
Flip the switch
Not
and ask you a
it.
question?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Trump said some not very nice things about you, and yet you made the reasonable calculation that he's better for this country than Kamala. Stood by his side, or very loyal to him.
You were great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Really.
Yeah.
You were saying really great stuff.
Oh, thank you.
But how did you squash that beef?
Well, it took a while, and it was organic. It took a while. Like that first year after that debate, in which I confronted him, and then he really did spend 9 months just attacking me. But in Trump's head, I attacked him first.
Right.
So it took me a while to really realize that. He really felt like I drew first blood, as opposed to thinking, oh, I'm at a presidential debate. These moderators are going to ask me tough questions, right? Like he felt like I drew first blood. So you have to factor that in, first of all. And if you go back and you look at that year on the Kelly file, I did hit him sometimes, but not that often. I actually was defending him more than I was hitting him. I only hit him on the Gold Star family. He attacked a Gold Star family. And he called that judge overseeing his Trump University case. He said he should step down because he's Hispanic. I was like, all right, that doesn't make sense. But truly, I remember, because I was very careful about like, when am I going to hit him? Because I know people are expecting me to just go full TDS. But he just never let up. So I really didn't like him. I was like, he's a bully. He's bullying me. This is unpleasant. And I just couldn't see myself like ever voting for him, even though I had voted Republican in the past several elections. And so I didn't like Trump. But then he started to govern. I didn't watch the inauguration. I was like, I don't want to watch this. I don't know what this next 4 years entails, but this doesn't bring me any joy, and I'm not going to take it in. This year, I can't wait to go to the inauguration. Like I'll go as a reporter. I don't want to go as an elite guest. I'm actually, trust me, I could call there and try to get an invitation. I'm like, no, I don't want that kind of a chummy relationship with him. I want to do my job. As a reporter, we'll show up there with my press pass and work the crowd. But over his 4 years governing, I was like, well, I like that. And I like that. And I like this. And I saw how unfair the media was to him. And then the Brett Kavanaugh thing was a before and after moment where I was, as I am with all these women, I'm open-minded. It could have happened. I don't know. Tell me your story. I will listen with an open mind. The more she talked, it was like, what? And then they were trying to sink this guy from the Supreme Court based on a 30-year-old unsubstantiated allegation from a woman who went first to Democrat operatives to bring it forward. And then within 2 seconds calling him a gang rapist. And I was radicalized onto Team Trump. And then the next 4 years with a lawfare as a lawyer, I was like, oh my God, this is catastrophic for the country.
With E. Jean Carroll, too. It's like, that's how you know these guys are actually clean. It's because when they have to pull out the dirt that's like ancient and nebulous on them, it's like, you're like, wow, they must have actually not done anything wrong.
Well, let me ask you something. Do you think he had any encounter with E. Jean Carroll?
No, she seems delusional.
No, and I mean,
it sounds like a romance novel where he like pushed her into her Bergdorf's dressing room.
He gave the best, most credible answer where she's not my type.
She doesn't seem like his type. I mean, yeah, and if that's really the worst, and all the other lawfare, like if that's really the worst they have on him, then he really must have not. If they had something credible, we would know.
Did you guys see the deposition testimony where her lawyer was deposing Trump and asking about that statement, she's not my type? And Trump was like, she's not. You're not either. You're not my Trump either, to be perfectly honest.
I mean, that's one of Trump's best qualities, that he doesn't really lie.
No.
Sometimes
that's what's crazy.
Sometimes he lies in the sense of, like hyperbolizing, dramatizing things in service of protecting his record and reputation. But he's actually like totally honest almost 100% of the time. And like libs have this perception that he's like a dyed-in-the-wool liar. And they're the ones who are really lying.
Yeah.
And they're really good at it because they are like not only misrepresenting the facts, but also like fudging the meaning. And they're doing this in a very like colluded way where all of them are on board. So no one person actually has to take accountability or be responsible.
They're sort of waiting for Rachel Maddow to get their talking points for the week. Who, by the way...
Also, no one's watching.
No one's watching. But I have to tell you something very sad. Rachel Maddow took a pay cut. She's gone from $30 million a year to $25 million a year. Single tier for 1 hour of television a week. Oh, however will she make it? Wait, we pulled over what soundbite? What did we pull over? We pulled over... Oh, Trump at the deposition. This is worth playing. No? What? Go ahead, play it.
When you said in that video that Ms. Leeds would not be your first choice, you were referring to her physical looks, correct?
Just the overall. I look at her, I see her, I hear what she says, whatever. You wouldn't be a choice of mine either, to be honest with you. I hope you're not insulted. I would not, under any circumstances, have any interest in you. I'm honest when I say it. I would not have any interest in.
Yeah. I mean, she is like such a horny psychopath.
Yeah. The lawyer?
No, Eugene. Yeah.
Totally.
All her
Who names their cat Vagina?
Yeah. I know she has all these like raunchy tweets and stuff. She's like clearly a very like demented,
yeah, she's
horny
like a
lady.
sexual assault ambulance chaser.
Wait, while my team is paying attention, do we have the one where he says fortunately or unfortunately about the grab him by the P word? I don't we're going to go find it. This was the best.
I mean, he's such a crowd pleaser.
Right. Explain that. How do you see that clip?
Which one?
Well, whatever, what you're saying here.
Yeah, that he's, even if you don't, I have a real message of like mercy. I think like it's okay if you didn't like Trump before. J.D. Vance didn't like Trump before.
Right. I didn't either. And I wound up speaking for him.
Yeah. And like now we can all just enjoy him. When Biden won 4 years ago, I remember distinctly feeling like I can tell the liberals miss Trump. And now he's back, and I think we can all set aside our differences. He really is like a unifying candidate.
That is the best alternative take.
It's so true. And it's like to circle back to what you were saying when you were talking about how we were Bernie bros and we pivoted to Trump. I don't really like the purity testing. You're allowed to change your mind. It's not a cynical thing. And the fact of the matter is that libs, I've said this on the show, I'm going to repeat myself yet again. Liberals say they hate Trump because he sows hateful and divisive discourse, among other things. But it's really the exact opposite. They're threatened by the fact that he's a unifying force with mass appeal. That's what they're really upset about.
And
they
we're
can't
seeing
handle
it
that.
now.
Yeah.
We're seeing it.
Yeah.
Wait, pause on where we're seeing it. And they found the deposition clip. Let's watch.
I just start kissing them. It's like a magnet. Just kiss. I don't even wait. And when you're a star, they let you do it. You can do anything. Grab them by the pussy. You can do anything. That's what you said, correct?
Well, historically, that's true with stars.
It's true with stars that they can grab women by the pussy?
Well, that's what it's. If you look over the last million years, I guess that's been largely true. Not always, but
million years
largely
that they're
true.
stars.
Unfortunately or fortunately.
And you consider yourself to be a star?
I think you can say that, yeah.
And now you said before.
That's enough. Whatever. We get it. That's the best.
When you're a star, they let you do it.
Unfortunately. Or fortunately.
Yeah.
So true.
He's got an amazing, we've always called him our first Jewish president because he has the cadence of like a Borscht
And our
Belt
first
comedian.
woman president, yeah.
He does.
He does, yeah.
He's a yenta.
He's just like super upfront and actually pretty even-handed at the end of the day. But the thing that liberals object to, it's just like elitism, plain and simple. Like they have that very unfortunate combination of snobbery and cowardice.
Well said. Wow, that's exactly it.
That's all it is. So when they say,
That's exactly
well, he's a threat
right.
to democracy, well, the democratic process has elected him. And also they never stop to think that they might be the real threat to democracy with their like endless lawfare and media manipulation and like bending of norms and values.
But that is what I think when I think of Scarborough.
Yeah.
Like the day after the election, he went out on his show and he was like, I know you don't watch and nobody watches, so you're fine. Don't start.
I've never even heard of him, but
I love that about you. But he went out on his show and he was like, he was a huge first Biden and then Kamala booster. And he was like, I've been telling him about this trans issue. I've been saying it many times. You know, you're on the wrong side. People care about this. They don't want boys and girls sports. You were? I don't remember that. I only heard you ripping on Trump and calling him Hitler and saying Kamala Harris was the most articulate, inspiring orator, etc. You lied. Really, what you did was lie. But that's exactly right. He was full of cowardice. And by the way, my team says that they have pulled the bite when he was on the Kelly file that I referenced. Let's take a look. Debbie Murphy has sent me the background of said clip. Let's watch it, and I will tell you whatever background she found.
There's still a blonde woman on that set interrupting you at every turn.
I swear to God, it's whether it's like 6 a.m. or it's 9 at night.
Yeah.
What, come on, somebody help me out here.
Only if you snapped your fingers at me, you'd have 8 fingers instead of 10.
There you go. Boy, you did your research, did you?
You got your own show. I got other guests.
I weren't conservative.
You talk about it tomorrow morning.
Roger Ailes let me come on the show.
Thanks for being here. If you want to see more of Joe, you can join his 4 viewers and see it tomorrow morning. No, just kidding.
They didn't get
gracious.
the end.
Yeah.
They didn't get the end where he did not laugh. He was not happy. He was upset about my 4 viewers, which was true. And the snap your finger, he had snapped his fingers in front of Mika's face like that. Even just the two of us sitting here, woman to woman, it's obnoxious. Like, get your fingers out of my face.
Yeah,
but a man doing it to a woman is really like, go F off.
Wait, are they married?
Now,
They're engaged.
But they had an affair. They were both cheating.
They fell in love on Morning Joe?
Forgive me because I don't have my... Who does that? Forgive me because I don't have all my facts about these two at the ready, but I'm about 90% sure, right, Steve Krakauer? They were both married to other people and they were cheating on those people.
Wow.
Look, it happens.
That makes me want to watch Morning Joe.
I know. They're just like Crystal
a little
Ball
sexual
and Kyle
tension.
But like,
Steve, for real.
Then she's out there like sex pot with her leg up. And again, like I did kind of sex potty photos. I did not potty. That connotes a different thing. Sex pot-esque photos for GQ. So it's not that I'm saying she shouldn't show off her sex appeal. It's that particular photo from a woman who wants us to believe she's a feminist. She's all about female rights, where she's looking at him. She's not looking at camera. She's basically showing her ass, and he's sitting in the power position looking direct into
She's
camera.
looking over her shoulder.
No, any self-respecting woman would have said no. But can I tell you something funny? So we'll drop it into this.
My earpiece keeps coming out.
Well, you don't need it. You can just listen.
Fine.
But I did the GQ photos when I was turning 40.
Oh, wow.
And I was pregnant with my second child. And I was like 4 months pregnant when I did the shoot. We'll find it. We'll put it. But I went, they were like, GQ would like to do a profile on you. Would you like to go do it? I'm like, sure, I'll do it. Fox kind of said you should do it or you shouldn't do it. So I followed their advice. So I go with the PR person over there. And they were like, how do you feel about wearing like a sexy outfit? And meanwhile, I'm 4 months pregnant and it's my second child. So like things had already popped down there, like it doesn't hold together as well on child number 2. And to be honest, it didn't hold together well on child number 1. But in any event, I'm like, sure, I'll go over it. And they put all this fake hair. I mean, I have fake hair now, but there it was fake. There it was temporary fake.
Yeah.
They just put it in for a day and they glammed me up. I looked so like sexy in a way that I had never seen myself. I was like, sure. They found it. Look, here we go.
Okay.
So I like that.
I remember this.
Look, first of all, I have boobs. I don't normally have boobs. I have like, I used to call them killer bees. I have like, but they were like floating.
Join the club.
They were C's and I was enjoying it. So now people are upset over my mocking Mika Brzezinski in that, and they're like, you pose for GQ.
You're looking in the camera. You're owning it.
I don't have a man there.
My issue with those photos isn't that she's doing like a sexy, slutty pose that goes against her feminist bona fides. It's that it's just corny and theater kid-like.
Totally.
It's not right for her. It really depends on the person.
It is right for her because it shows her subservient. You were saying you got cut off, but that some douchebag men like being like crapped on.
Well, it's like a cliche. Like men who work in finance will patronize dominatrixes because their lives are they have so much power and they're under so much pressure that they then like to be like subjugated. It's almost it's
like you're a bad boy.
Yeah, it's a kind of a classic sexual pathology.
That's not what was in that photo.
No.
Right? It was, look at me.
Who took that photo? Was it Ani Leibovitz? It looks like
it was Vanity Fair.
Looks like her handiwork.
They were on the cover of Vanity Fair.
I don't know if it was it the cover? It probably was. I was on the cover of Vanity Fair.
How have they had
not with that photo? That was GQ.
So few viewers for so long.
Mark Seliger. Was it the cover, Steve Krakauer? He's looking it up. No. It wasn't the cover.
I just feel.
Oh, it was about Joe Scarborough possibly running for president. It was 2012. Look at the open laughs. Finish your point. What were you going to say, Dasha?
How long? How have they had their show for so long with so
few viewers? Yeah. Good question. I mean, MSNBC just doesn't have a lot of viewers. It never did. The slashies. I was making fun of this earlier, but if you get less than 50,000, which has never been a thing on Fox. No, we've never, ever. You were never flirting with a slash. But if you get under 50, you get slashy. 50,000 viewers. But that's good for podcasts.
Yes.
It's not good for cable.
Podcasts who don't have like a video.
Why not?
Thing. We're lazy.
Yeah.
It's not hard.
I know.
We don't, it's just us. We don't have like producers or anyone.
Well, I might have to make this happen for you.
Okay. I mean, that'd be nice.
No. Well, that speaking of being on camera, is this, how are you talking like this as a Hollywood actress?
I mean, yeah, it hasn't been great for my career, but I have other things going. I'm not like just an actress. I'm a multi-hyphenate. But I think things will shift, and I mean, it's always not ideal. I mean, you had Rachel Ziegler on the docket too. I think actresses should be quiet. I understand
she's
why.
such an asshole.
What
is she the one that's on the cover of Cosmo with the cover story authored by Jack Antonoff?
I don't know. I just know of her stupid statements in the news.
Let me look this up.
Yeah, I think actresses should be quiet.
And I love that.
You can be hindered. And I'm like, I understand why I've been hindered in my career as an actress for being a media personality.
Have you? Do you feel like they've silenced you?
it's not ideal. It's a liability. People don't like liability.
Does your agent say, Tasha, shut up?
Yeah.
Yeah, of course.
Sure does.
He sure does.
Of course.
But I think things will shift and,
Right. Well, right now they're looking for Trump supporters for movies, for television shows, for The View. Like now they can be like, we hired Dasha. What do you mean? We're fair and balanced.
Well, now that I think just any kind of like commentary will make you a liability.
Here, so the reason we had Rachel Zegler on the docket is she's an asshole. That's number one.
You called her a pig?
She's a pig. I know, I'm harsh. Sometimes I really
She's
get
a young
on roll.
girl.
Oh, fuck her.
We've called people slam pigs. So
There we go. Thank you. Anna gets it.
No, I know. But I just mean she's, it's actresses aren't known for their like.
So annoying. I know. She's dumb. She's young and she's dumb. But maybe she'll learn. You know what? Whatever I called her, it worked.
She apologized.
She did a 180 after I attacked her, and she deserved it. You deserved it, my dear. Hopefully you'll grow up soon. You should listen to the Megyn Kelly Show. It will help you. So she came out and took a large dump on half of the country. Everyone who voted for Trump. I remember her words.
She hopes they know no peace.
Right.
Something really,
and that Trump knows no peace. The man's already been almost assassinated twice, so maybe check the rhetoric. So I attacked her, and then she came out and she said, I apologize. Like I went too far. But it wasn't sincere because she's had a long history of saying woke, annoying things. Our new Snow White and my team, my helpful team, pulled this SOT from just Soundbite, Sound on Tape, SOT, from December 2023, in which, I would say she leans into her role as both victim and heroine. Listen.
And to everyone who hates when I win, the winged victory came to the Louvre in pieces, and people still line up to see her.
Oh my God.
And I can only hope.
What does that mean?
That despite my flaws, and despite my cracks and my breaks, and there are many of them, that at every premiere and everything I do, people will wait in line to see.
She's an actress. They do that.
Can you please analyze that from an actor-director perspective?
That's what actors, that's how they are. They're emotional. They're,
Was that acting?
They're porous.
Yeah. But no.
Could you do that?
Should I start crying? Yeah, they're porous. They're like, they're not known. They're not intellectuals.
No. My friend Melissa Francis is a childhood actor. She was on Little House on the Prairie. She and Jason Bateman were like the new Ingalls kids when the originals aged out. So they had to bring in new ones. So she and he starred together, and she's amazing because she still gives her children a hard time when they fake cry. Like, really?
That's what you have to do. You have to laugh at them, and then they break out into a chuckle because they know.
Like, can I see a real tear? Yeah. I would produce true waterworks. You're going to have to up your game if you're going to be in this family.
You can't just contort your
face. As a friend of mine put it, kids are stupid but intuitive, and they can see through you every single time. And I think that's what actors are too a lot of the time.
Stupid but intuitive.
Yes, yeah.
They have a different kind of intelligence.
Yeah. I agree. Well, what did you think of the Oprah town hall with Meryl Streep? Madam President. I mean Madam Vice President. Oh, did I say President?
I didn't watch it.
Good for you. This is why you're happy. How old are you?
33.
Yeah, you're living your life, having a great life. How old are you? Do you mind if I ask? Sorry.
Why? Because I look old?
No, I shouldn't have asked it of either one of you.
I'm 39.
So what's the story? We talked last time. One of you is from Belarus.
Her.
And one of you is from Russia.
Moscow.
Yeah, from Moscow. Okay, so you came over to the United States with your parents. And how did you find each other again? Remind us.
Well, she moved to the West Coast. I moved to the East Coast through no fault of our own. And I don't know. I think we were mutuals on social media.
And we had some mutual friends in New York. I moved to New York in 2018, which is when we started the show.
And I was in New York since 2009.
But we had been following each other online. And we had both
why are you so much alike? Like the way you speak, you have like a sort of quiet affect.
We're astrologically
But
really
you're
compatible.
I love your cutting commentary with this, with like the flat affect. It's very effective.
I think it's a Slavic.
Yeah.
Is it?
Like
Melania.
Like Melania, yeah. Like
I
Martha
love watching
Stewart.
her parenting videos where she's like, Baron is going to go to school and then he will get his suitcase. And it's literally how I talk to my toddler. And you can tell that she really loves him and she's really enthusiastic about him, but she's keeping her emotions
Totally regulated.
Regulated, yeah, at bay because she doesn't want to lose control.
Does it surprise you that she married Trump?
No.
And stayed with Trump?
No.
Why? Explain that.
Because she's smart. I mean, well, people love to slander her as like a Eastern European prostitute. I feel like she experiences a lot of anti-Slavic rhetoric. But she's obviously like a very smart and elegant
speaks 6
woman.
languages.
Yeah. Yeah. And she's discreet, which can't be said of a lot of people.
They love to pull up her like nude and risque photos and be like,
They think that's a slam.
yeah, yeah, this isn't the own you think it is. She looks great, and all models did nude photos.
We're all like, oh man, I have to try harder. Gotta get to the gym.
And Ivanka was Slavic as well. So he has a type.
Right. Well, describe Eastern European women.
I mean, we're effectively American, so we're probably.
But you know
not,
these, women like that.
I think they're deceptively warm. That they have a reputation for being cold, but actually most like Russian and Slavic women I've known are very.
Why would she put up with like, I mean, I don't know whatever about Stormy Daniels, but there's no question I think that Trump has not been totally faithful.
Yeah.
So why would she put up with that?
Maybe because she's not super sentimental.
Yeah.
And, she has a good life. She loves her son. She loves her husband. I don't know, infidelity doesn't have to be like a deal breaker necessarily.
I would say that like
everyone.
at the end of the day, Eastern European women have a warm heart and mean well, but they have a contempt for weakness. So you always have to save face.
I share that.
Yeah. I know, I can tell. I like you.
Yes.
Again.
But it's very
true,
interesting.
yeah. But I think that that's all like non-retarded women who end up like they happen to always lean slightly right. Not because they're necessarily even like politically invested or involved, but that's just like how it goes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That explains a lot. I don't, she's like impeccable. Her beauty, her style, her class.
Yeah.
You could not behave any better, right? Like what more could you ask of her? And yet she gets totally ignored by Vogue and all the other magazines. They have no interest in her because she's married to Trump.
Yeah. Or they talk about how she's like basically a prostitute that she married who's like ready to betray him at any moment, which she hasn't done. And when
the New York Times called her a mannequin when he was running, a mannequin. Like, really? Is she?
That's so sexist.
I know. This magazine that wants us to believe they're totally woke and evolved and so on. All right. So what's your prediction for the next 4 years? How's it going to go? Are these liberals who told us he was Hitler going to try to be more open-minded in their coverage because they know that their base actually may have voted for him, the working class, the minorities, even women in much larger numbers than expected? Are they going to try to say, like, I'm going to be fair? Or are they going to be their normal selves and try to ruin him?
I think, I think if he does follow through on the mass deportations, we're going to have kids in cages. We're going to have lots of like trauma porn, basically. But for the most part, I've said this on the show, like they don't have it in them the way they used to. They're not doing the women's marches. There's no hashtag resistance. Like I just don't think they have the energy or the popular support. They like the writing's on the wall. So I think for the most part, it won't be as bad as the TDS was during his first term.
I think they're going to recede into their own enclosed, like siloed sphere of media, like the Ezra Kleins, the Maddie Iglesiases. I can't pluralize that name.
After Martini, well done.
And Sam Harris was just on his podcast talking about the failures, the Kamala's failures and Trump's victory. And, basically like lying through his teeth, though he's not even aware that he's lying. I I agree with Dasha. I don't think it's going to be as bad or as strident as it was before. And I'm a natural like cynic and pessimist, but the one thing that makes me feel really, really hopeful about this administration is that everybody in it is so young. They're like my age.
Yeah.
And so it's very
JD
clear.
Vance is 40.
He's 40. He's a year older than me.
Yeah.
So it's like very clear that Trump is not only like interested in remaking the Republican Party in his own image, he's also interested in injecting it with new blood and giving it a future.
Tulsi's 43. Hegseth is 44.
They're so young.
Think about it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's crazy.
My door guy said Vance is going to be president for 8 years.
Yeah. I mean, you can only hope, right? That would be such a gift to the country.
Yeah.
You ladies are a pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. I would suggest that we hang out socially, but I'm like old enough to be your mother, so it would be not appropriate. But come again.
Yes.
We would love to. Yeah.
Please do. It was so fun.
It's been great.
Nice to see you in person. Wow, right? Did you love them? The ladies of Red Scare. Thank you all for listening, and we'll see you Monday. Have a great weekend.